I'm 68 years old with calloused hands that have built more than most people could imagine. The autumn breeze in Asheville had always brought me peace, until that September morning when Walter, my 43-year-old son, walked through the door of the house I'd raised with my own hands and shouted words I never thought I'd hear. His wife Rebecca stood behind him, 41 years old and unable to meet my eyes. My grandchildren, 15-year-old Abigail and 12-year-old Connor, watched from the hallway, confused and frightened. They'd never seen their father like this. Neither had I. Let me tell you what led to this moment. I remember the day Gerald and I bought this land in Montford. Back then, it was just an overgrown lot with potential that only we could see. The neighborhood wasn't fashionable yet, just working families trying to make something of themselves. Gerald had his accounting job, and I worked at the textile factory on the edge of town. We were young, in love, and determined. The wooden house with its wraparound porch and rose garden holds 42 years of memories. Every floorboard knows my footsteps. In recent months, Walter had been insisting I should move to somewhere more suitable for someone your age, a euphemism for a nursing home, but I'd always gently refused. That morning, though, he brought a folder of papers, a power of attorney I'd signed 2 years earlier, during my bout with pneumonia. I didn't remember the document. Age plays tricks on your memory sometimes. "We signed everything yesterday," he said, placing the papers on the kitchen table. "The house has been sold. You're moving to Golden Pines in 2 weeks." I felt the floor disappear beneath me. My house sold without my consent? The home I built with Gerald? The land we purchased when nobody believed in this neighborhood? Rebecca finally spoke, her voice hesitant. "Eleanor, it's for your own good. The house is too big. There are stairs, and you're alone." Alone. The word echoed like a sentence. After 42 years of caring for others, I was now a burden. Abigail, always sensitive, asked from the doorway, "Is Grandma leaving?" Walter answered before I could open my mouth, "Grandma's going to a better place where she'll have friends her own age." In that moment, something inside me, something that had remained dormant since Gerald's death, awakened. I set my coffee cup down on the table and said, in the calmest voice I could muster, "I want to show you something." I walked toward the basement. They all followed, puzzled. The basement had always been my private space, where I kept the past. I turned on the light and pointed to an old wooden box in the corner. I asked Walter to open it. Inside were old photographs, yellowed documents, and a worn hammer. "Your father was an accountant, Walter. He had soft hands and a gentle heart, but he couldn't drive a nail straight. This house, I built it." His eyes widened as I pulled out photographs from 1981. A young woman with work gloves and tied-back hair, raising beams, laying bricks, installing windows. I worked at the textile factory during the day and built at night on weekends for 3 years. When the factory closed and your father got sick, I was the one who supported this family by fixing roofs around the neighborhood. Rebecca picked up one of the photos, surprised. "I never knew this." Of course not. Walter was always embarrassed by my manual labor, by the mother who smelled of sawdust and had nails stained with paint. The silence that followed cut deep. My son looked like he was seeing a stranger before him. Connor, always curious, asked, "You built everything yourself, Grandma?" "Not everything. I had help. But this house came from my hands, my aching back, my sweat. When your grandfather fell ill, this is where he wanted to stay, and this is where he passed, in that room upstairs." Tears began rolling down Abigail's cheeks. She never knew her grandfather, but she felt the loss in that moment. Walter found another envelope in the box. They were the promissory notes I'd paid month by month for 20 years. The last one had been settled just 2 weeks after his college graduation. "I never told you how I managed to pay for your education, did I? After your father died, I worked the night shift at Hank's Diner. During the day, I fixed houses around town. I slept 4 hours a day for 6 years. Rebecca began crying silently. She immediately understood what Walter couldn't see. Have you ever had someone look at you? Really look at you? For the first time? That's what happened in my basement that day. My son was seeing the woman behind the mother, the builder behind the caretaker. In the weeks that followed, the tension grew. Walter insisted the sale was irreversible. The lawyer confirmed that, legally, he was right. The power of attorney gave me few options. Reluctantly, I began packing my memories. Each object held a story that no one else knew. One evening, a fire started at the Collins house next door. While everyone watched helplessly, I entered through the back and brought out Mrs. Collins and her cat. The firefighters arrived and extinguished the flames before they spread. My builder's instinct had shown me exactly where to enter safely. The news traveled quickly through town. The next day, Walter appeared with a pale face. "You could have died, Mom." "We're all gonna die someday, Walter. The difference is how we live until then." 2 days later, I discovered that Rebecca had contacted the buyer without Walter's knowledge. She tried to cancel the sale, but the man refused. Then something unexpected happened. Abigail organized a petition in the neighborhood. She and Connor went door to door, telling my story. How I had not only built our house, but helped renovate several others in the neighborhood over the years. In 1 week, 117 signatures. The entire community mobilized. But that wasn't what changed everything. It was what we found in the attic. Walter was helping me pack the last of my things when he dropped a box. Among the scattered papers was an envelope addressed to him in Gerald's handwriting. A letter my husband had written before he died, asking that it only be delivered when I could no longer live alone. "Walter, my son, if you're reading this, it means your mother needs you now, as she needed me so many times, and I failed her. This house that you always thought was too modest for us? She built it when I was unemployed and depressed. The money for your education? She saved when I couldn't contribute. Your future? She secured it when I couldn't. Now it's your turn to secure hers. Don't take her away from the only place where she truly belongs. Adapt the house if needed. Move in with her if necessary. But remember, those calloused hands once held yours, small and defenseless. It's time to give back." Walter couldn't finish reading aloud. He broke down in tears like a child. For the first time, I saw my son cry like a little boy since his father's death. 3 days later, the sale was canceled. The lawyer found an irregularity in the contract, something about lifetime residence rights. But we knew the truth. The buyer had backed out after the story spread through town. A week later, moving trucks arrived, not to take me away, but bringing Walter, Rebecca, and the children. The house would be renovated, not sold. My room would remain the same, on the ground floor. The whole family would live under the roof I built. On the night they moved in, Walter sat with me on the porch. The stars shone over Asheville, and the air had that pine scent that always reminded me of Gerald. "Forgive me, Mom," he finally said. "I thought I was taking care of you, but I was only thinking of myself." "Walter," I replied, "building a house is hard. Building a family is even harder. Both need constant maintenance." We drank coffee together in silence, while inside, Rebecca and the children arranged their belongings. I heard Abigail's laughter echoing through the walls I had raised so long ago. I realized then that true strength isn't in the walls we build, but in the bridges we create. And some bridges take decades to complete. If you've ever had to fight for your place in your own family, make sure you're subscribed, because every story here is a reflection of life's hardest truths. Today, 6 months later, I teach Connor how to fix the back porch. Abigail learns from me how to grow the roses that Gerald loved so much. Walter found the old house plans and studies how to make it more accessible for me in the coming years. This morning, I found Rebecca looking at the old photograph of me with the hammer in my hand. "I never imagined my mother-in-law as a builder," she said with a smile. "We all build something," I replied. "Some build houses, others careers. The wisest build second chances." The house is now full of life again. The walls I erected decades ago shelter new dreams, new possibilities, and when I feel the aches in my joints on cold mornings, I look at my granddaughter's hands and see in them the same strength I once had in mine. The first time Walter called me after moving in, I noticed something different. He asked about a creaking floorboard in the hallway. Not to complain, but to learn how to fix it. "I want to understand this house, Mom," he said. I want to understand what you built." That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through the quiet house, touching the door frames I had measured and cut, the banister I had sanded until my fingers bled. In the kitchen, I found Rebecca's notebook open on the counter. She was planning a family history project with the children. Grandma Eleanor, the woman who built our home. I sat at the table, overwhelmed. The moonlight filtered through the windows I had installed 40 years earlier. I remembered how Gerald had held the ladder, his face tense with worry as I balanced the heavy glass. "Be careful, Ellie," he'd called. "I need you down here with me. Do you know what it feels like to be truly seen after years of invisibility? To have your life's work acknowledged after decades of silence?" The following Sunday, neighbors started arriving. First Mrs. Collins with her famous apple pie, then the Richardsons, the Patels, the Morellis, families whose homes I had helped repair over the years. They brought food, stories, and old photographs. It wasn't planned. Walter looked as surprised as I was. "We heard you were staying," Mrs. Collins said, hugging me. "This neighborhood wouldn't be the same without you, Eleanor." In the corner, I saw Walter watching, finally understanding something about his mother that had always been there, hidden in plain sight. I belonged to this community as much as it belonged to me. Spring came, and with it Walter's proposal. The backyard had enough space for a small workshop. "For you to teach us," he said, "and for the neighborhood kids, too, if you want." I hadn't touched my tools in years, not since the arthritis made fine work difficult. But the idea of passing on what I knew, of leaving that legacy, brought tears to my eyes. "Your father would have loved that," I told him. "I know," Walter said. "He was proud of you. I just didn't understand why until now." We broke ground in April. Connor dug the first shovelful of earth, his face serious with responsibility. Abigail had designed the space, a simple structure with large windows and a covered porch. Rebecca organized a building schedule involving neighbors who wanted to help. The day we raised the frame, 20 people showed up. Some I had known for decades, others were new to the neighborhood. Young couples watched intently as I demonstrated how to measure and cut with precision, how to test the level of a beam, how to listen to what the wood tells you. "My grandmother built our house," Connor told his friends proudly. No embarrassment, no shame, just fact. By summer, the workshop was complete. We painted it the same blue as the main house, and I hung my old tools on the wall, not as relics, but as instruments still in use. The arthritis might limit what I could do, but my knowledge remained intact, ready to be shared. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching fireflies rise from the garden, Walter asked the question that had probably been on his mind for months. "Why didn't you tell me, Mom? About building the house, about everything you did?" I thought carefully before answering. When you're a mother, you protect your children from the hardships. You want them to remember the bedtime stories, not the calluses on the hands that held the books. "But I should have known," he insisted. "I should have seen." "We only see what we're ready to see, Walter. You weren't ready then." The truth is, I had hidden parts of myself for so long that they had become invisible even to me. The builder, the provider, the woman who refused to break when life demanded it, she had retreated behind the role of mother, grandmother, widow. Now she had returned, not with the strength of youth, but with the wisdom of age. My hands might tremble when holding a hammer now, but they know exactly where to strike. In September, 1 year after Walter had tried to sell my house, we held a neighborhood gathering in the backyard. Tables stretched from the porch to the workshop, laden with food and drinks. Children played on the swing I had hung from the oak tree decades ago. Adults chatted in groups, some examining the workshop with admiration. Walter stood up to make a toast. I expected something simple, a thank you to the guests, perhaps. Instead, he cleared his throat and said, "A year ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I tried to take my mother away from this house, not understanding that she is this house. Every nail, every board, every window reflects her strength and love." Rebecca handed him something, a small wooden plaque. Walter continued, "Today, we're renaming this place officially. No longer just the Barrett House, but Eleanor's Haven, a home built by hand, preserved by heart, and standing as a testament to what one woman can create. He attached the plaque beside the front door, and everyone applauded. I couldn't speak. Some recognitions come too late in life to be fully absorbed at once. Later that night, after everyone had gone and the house was quiet again, I sat alone in my workshop. The moonlight cast long shadows through the windows, and the smell of fresh wood shavings filled the air. I ran my fingers over the workbench, smooth from use, marked with the honest scars of creation. A soft knock at the door. Abigail stood there, her young face serious in the dim light. "Grandma, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart." She sat beside me, her hands, so similar to mine at her age, folded in her lap. "Were you ever afraid? When you were building things, when you were doing everything alone?" The question caught me off guard with its simplicity and depth. "Every day," I admitted. Fear was my constant companion, but so was determination. "I'm afraid sometimes," she whispered, "about the future, about what I'm supposed to become." I took her hand in mine. The contrast was striking. Her smooth skin against my weathered palm. "You don't have to know what you're building yet, Abigail. Just make sure your foundation is strong." She leaned her head against my shoulder, and we sat in comfortable silence, 3 generations under one roof, the past, present, and future, interconnected like the beams of a well-made house. Winter came early that year. The first snow fell in late November, covering Montfort in a blanket of white. The old house creaked and settled as it always did in the cold, a language I understood intimately. Each sound had meaning. The soft pop of wood contracting, the gentle whistle of wind finding the smallest gaps. Walter had insulated the attic properly now, something I'd never found time to do. Rebecca had replaced the old curtains with thicker ones that kept the warmth in. Small improvements that showed their commitment to preserving what I had built. On Christmas Eve, as we gathered around the fireplace I had constructed brick by brick, Connor asked, "Grandma, tell us the story of the house again." And so I did. I told them about the summer of 1981, when Gerald and I camped on the empty lot in a tent, planning our future home. How we'd saved for 5 years to buy the land, working extra shifts and weekend jobs. How the bank had refused us a construction loan because they didn't believe a woman could be the primary builder. "So, what did you do?" Abigail asked, though she'd heard the story before. "We built it ourselves, piece by piece, paycheck by paycheck. No bank loan, no contractors, just determination and a good set of tools." Walter listened intently, as if hearing certain details for the first time. Perhaps he was. We often hear the same story differently as we age, finding new meanings in familiar words. "The hardest part wasn't the physical labor," I continued. "It was the doubt. The neighbors who said it couldn't be done, the inspectors who questioned every joint and connection because a woman had made them. But you proved them wrong," Connor said proudly. "I did. And you know what I learned? That the strongest structures are built not just with wood and nails, but with patience and principle." Rebecca added another log to the fire. "I've been thinking about starting a blog," she said casually, "about renovating older homes, preserving their character while making them work for modern families." "That's a wonderful idea," I replied, surprised and pleased. Rebecca had always worked in marketing, never showing interest in home improvement until recently. "I'd like you to contribute, Eleanor. Your knowledge is too valuable to keep to ourselves." That night, after everyone had gone to bed, I stood at my bedroom window watching the snow fall. The workshop was just visible in the moonlight, a solid shape against the white landscape. Next to it, barely started, was another structure, a playhouse for Connor and Abigail that we had begun building together. A home within a home within a home, layers of love and labor extending through time. Spring arrived with its promise of renewal. The rose garden bloomed again, and I spent mornings teaching Abigail how to prune and care for the delicate plants. Her hands were becoming steadier, more confident with each task she learned. Walter had taken a reduced schedule at his law firm to spend more time at home. I often found him in the evenings studying old carpentry books, asking questions about techniques I had used decades ago. "I should have apprenticed with you," he said one day, frustrated after a failed attempt to repair a cabinet door, "instead of spending all those summers at camp." "You were learning different skills," I told him, "equally important ones. But this," he gestured around the house, "this is tangible. This lasts." I smiled, remembering Gerald saying something similar when we first started building. "Nothing lasts forever, Walter, not even the strongest house. What matters is the care you put into it while it's yours." Rebecca's blog had gained a surprising following. Reclaiming Heritage, one family's journey to preserve their grandmother's legacy, featured weekly posts about our renovations, my building stories, and tips for honoring the history of older homes. She had a natural talent for connecting the physical aspects of home improvement with the emotional dimensions of family life. One post, "The Hands That Built Our Home," included close-up photographs of my hands alongside Abigail's and Connor's as we worked together on various projects. It received thousands of shares and comments from women across the country, many sharing similar stories of mothers and grandmothers who had built, maintained, and preserved family homes against all odds. "You've become something of an icon, Mom," Walter said, showing me the latest comments on the blog. "Women are asking if you'd consider doing workshops beyond our neighborhood." The idea was both flattering and overwhelming. "I'm just an old woman who knew how to use a hammer," I said. "You're much more than that," Rebecca insisted. "You're proof that women have always been builders, even when history didn't record it." In June, a production company contacted Rebecca about featuring our story in a documentary series about unsung American craftswomen. The producer, a young woman named Maya, visited us for preliminary discussions. "What fascinates me about your story, Mrs. Barrett," she said as we walked through the house, "is not just that you built it, but that you almost lost it because no one recognized its true value, or yours." Her words struck a chord. How many women's accomplishments had been overlooked, undervalued, nearly erased? How many had fought to preserve what they created, only to be dismissed as sentimental or impractical? "If we do this," I told her, "it needs to be about more than just me. It needs to be about all the women who built foundations, literal and figurative, that others stand on without knowing." Maya nodded, understanding perfectly. "That's exactly what we want to capture." The filming began in July, a small crew documenting our daily life, the ongoing renovations, and the workshop classes I now offered to neighborhood women. They interviewed Walter about his journey from wanting to sell the house to becoming its most devoted preserver. They captured Rebecca developing her blog into a resource for families reclaiming their homes' histories. They filmed Abigail and Connor learning skills that schools no longer taught. But the most powerful moments came when neighbors arrived with their stories. How I had repaired Mrs. Collins' roof during a thunderstorm when her husband was hospitalized. How I had rebuilt the Patel's porch after a tree fell on it during a hurricane. How I had taught Mr. Morelli to fix his own plumbing when he couldn't afford a professional. Small acts of building and rebuilding that had strengthened not just structures but a community. During a break in filming, Maya asked me a question no one had ever posed before. "Mrs. Barrett, what would you have built if you'd had the same opportunities as men of your generation?" I considered this carefully. "I would have built exactly what I did build," I finally answered, "because what I created wasn't limited by lack of opportunity, but expanded by necessity and love." She looked surprised. "You don't feel you were held back?" Of course I was held back. I was underestimated, underpaid, and often unwelcome on construction sites. But that didn't stop me from building. It just meant I built differently, more resourcefully, with greater purpose. That evening, as the crew packed up their equipment, Walter found me in the workshop. I was sanding a small wooden box, a jewelry case for Abigail's upcoming 16th birthday. "I've been thinking about Dad's letter," he said, sitting beside me, "about how he acknowledged that he failed you in some ways." I continued sanding, giving him space to find his words. "I failed you too, Mom, not just with trying to sell the house, but for years before that. I never really saw you." I set down the sandpaper and turned to face my son. The afternoon light caught the gray in his hair. When had that appeared? We all fail each other sometimes, Walter. That's part of being family. The question is whether we keep trying to build something better. He picked up a piece of wood, examining its grain. I always thought Dad was the strong one, the provider, the protector, but it was you all along, wasn't it? We were strong in different ways, I said. His strength was in his steadiness, his faith in me. Mine was in my hands and back. Together we built more than either of us could have alone. Walter nodded slowly. I want Connor and Abigail to know both kinds of strength, to value both. As summer turned to fall, the documentary took shape. Maya showed us rough cuts of certain segments, seeking our input and approval. Seeing my life reflected back to me, the young woman with determined eyes becoming the grandmother with weathered hands, was a strange experience, like meeting myself across time. The final scene they filmed was a community gathering in our backyard. Neighbors brought dishes to share, children played on the new swing set Walter and Connor had built, and 3 generations of women, myself, Rebecca, and Abigail, stood on the porch of the workshop welcoming everyone. Maya captured the moment when Walter unveiled the sign for our newly established community program, Eleanor's Builders, Preserving Homes, Strengthening Community. The initiative would offer free repair services to elderly neighbors, taught by myself and other skilled residents, with assistance from local youth learning the trades. This isn't just about fixing houses, Walter explained to the gathered crowd. It's about recognizing that a community is built the same way as a home, with careful attention to foundation, framework, and the spaces in between. I watched my son speak with pride and a touch of wonder. The boy who had once been embarrassed by his mother's calloused hands now honored them publicly. The man who had tried to sell my house now committed to extending its legacy beyond its walls. As the camera rolled, capturing this moment of completion and new beginning, I felt a presence beside me, not physical but undeniable. Gerald would have loved this day. He would have recognized it as the fulfillment of what we had started together so many years ago. That night, after everyone had left and the house was quiet, I sat alone on the porch swing. The autumn air carried the scent of wood smoke and fallen leaves. Across the street, lights glowed in windows of homes I had helped repair over the decades. Down the block, a young couple was renovating their first house, sometimes stopping by for advice or to borrow a specialized tool. The neighborhood had changed, as all places do with time. New families moved in, old ones moved on, houses were updated, expanded, reimagined, but beneath the fresh paint and modern fixtures the bones remained, the yiskas, careful work of those who came before. A home isn't just a place to live. It's the silent testament of who we are, where we came from, and what we're capable of building when love is greater than pride. And that, no one can sell or take away. If this story touched your heart, like and share it, because sometimes hearing another woman's pain is what makes us feel less alone. When I found a young woman I barely knew sleeping in my bedroom, wearing my robe, in the lakeside cottage I'd sacrificed 42 years to afford,